I'm Davy. I'm awesome. And welcome to Davy's Awesome Stories, where I tell funny stories from my past or go on a rant in an effort to make you laugh. So last week I talked about how before the internet, people had to keep their dumb, stupid things to themselves. Whether it was their opinions or their theories or whatever. They couldn't share it with the entire world. They could share it with a couple of individuals who would tell them, "You're stupid, shut up." But you know what? It wasn't just the dumb things that they had to keep to themselves. People had to keep their crazy to themselves too. Like, I'm not judging, we all are a little bit nuts. Let's just face it. We all have eccentricities, we all have weird things about us. But before the internet, we could not share that with the entire world. Again, for the most part, we kept it to ourselves. Maybe let it out to a very trusted friend or a significant other that we finally felt comfortable enough with to let out weird things. And it was okay because they'd let the weird things out to you too. Because they'd be sitting there going like, "Oh, so you have a phobia of sixes and you do everything in patterns. That's weird." But by then you could come back at them with something like, "Yeah, well, you're the one that refuses to eat brown M&Ms because you think for some reason the brown food coloring causes you to get constipated." But then the internet came out, and it started with chat sites, and then instant messengers, and then MySpace, and Facebook, and Twitters, and all that stuff, that people were like, "Hey, I can let this crazy stuff out for everybody to see, feel better about myself, because I'm anonymous." And the worst part about it is they'd throw that out there, just something really crazy about themselves. Something like they would just post, "Everybody, I like to have pillow fights against my other pillows." And most of us would be on there, we'd see that, and we'd just go, "Okay, little nuts, but whatever. I'm not going to have a private chat with you. I'm just going to move on with my life." But you'd also notice that somebody else would respond to them with something like, "Hey, me too. We should start a website." The two of them would get together, build a website, and then other people would build websites, and then those people were all like, "Hey, let's all get together and meet in person," and now we have conventions of people who like to attack pillows with other pillows. But then other people would see it and they'd feel like they gotta escalate it a little. Go like, "Oh, well, I'm afraid of giraffes because I believe the reason their necks are so long is because they have demons living inside of them." And you kind of wish that people would just keep that stuff to themselves. But no, now the other people are again coming back with, "I never thought they had demons in their necks. But you know what? Even though I have absolutely no reason to believe that, I do." And mark my words, in a couple months, you're going to start seeing hashtag cancel giraffes. Even worse about this, though, was that as people more and more were sharing their crazy stuff, it started escalating to mainstream things. Like one of these people had to throw out there, "I like to eat chairs." And somebody in Hollywood saw that and said, "Hey, we can make a television show out of this." And now we have My Strange Addiction. Which people get mad at me for saying that because like, "Oh, these people have addictions." You don't have addictions, you're nuts. And you're entertained because they're nuts. And if you're into that stuff, fine, but don't try to make me feel bad because I say it's crazy that somebody is voluntarily pooping out splinters. But the worst thing about this is the natural progression of everything on the internet always goes to sexual. Because the internet's most popular thing since the time it came around has been pornography. Now, at this point, I am going to warn you people, it's going to get a little PG-13 up in here. But I'll still keep it as clean as I can. But before the internet, if you were into weird, kinky, sexual things, you kept it to yourself. You didn't tell a lot of people. We didn't know what other people were into, and I was so much happier that way. At the very most, you might tell a friend, that you were into something that was weird, but harmless. Something like they'd throw out at you that they have a foot fetish. Which now is kind of common, but before, it was weird. Wasn't something we judged you too harsh about. We would just kind of go like, "Okay, you like feet. Whatever." I definitely don't share that fetish. In my opinion, the most beautiful pair of feet I've ever seen are still freaking ugly and gross. But whatever. But then it escalates. Because then the internet comes out and everybody's going like, "Hey, I like feet. Can I get some videos just for me?" And of course they made them. And then people were watching this and they were like, but I want something more. And 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 now we got videos of girls farting on cakes. Which if you're into, sorry, that's freaking weird. And I am going to judge you because you're ruining cakes. But you're causing people to get into this stuff. Because here's the thing. I'm not going to pretend, especially as a teenager, I never looked at some weird stuff just because I was curious. Thankfully, I never actually got into any of it. I'm really not all that kinky, I guess. But I have to believe that that's how it started. Was somebody heard about this, thought it was funny, had to show somebody else. Kind of like the cake farting. My wife found out about it, saw it, had to show me, grossed me out. Not just because the girl was farting on a perfectly good cake, but she sat on it, got up, and it was a chocolate cake. You'd figure that part out.
Ew.
And then the other person that was there watching it with us had to keep throwing out like, that girl's not even pretty. And I was like, of course she's not pretty. That's why she's farting on cakes. If she was pretty, she'd be doing regular porn. But I guarantee you somebody out there, same thing. Somebody they knew, saw it, thought it was funny, showed it to them, and they reacted like, oh, she's farting on a cake. I guess I'm into this. Even though, like I said, the girl wasn't pretty. Seriously. She looked like olive oil after getting beaten in the face with a sack of oranges. But again, before the internet, this wasn't even a thing. You never even heard about this stuff. If somebody somehow developed that particular fetish, that they like it when their girlfriend takes off her pants, sits on a cake, and farts on it, he wouldn't tell anybody. And he would keep his woman happy so she didn't leave him and go tell people. Because the ridicule would have never stopped back then. Now the collective thing is, everybody's got their kinks. This guy who's into that, his only chance of ever satisfying that fetish was meet a girl, date her for a while, maybe even marry her, and then eventually just tell her like, hey honey, I always wanted to see a girl sit on a cake and fart on it, and hope that she loved him enough to do it. But again, if he even came up with that, because we didn't even hear about these things. The only way you heard about weird sexual things before the internet was if you were up at night watching one of those HBO or Cinemax documentaries where they go find real couples who are into weird stuff. And as a teenager, you watched it because you wanted to see naked people, and then you got disappointed because you didn't get to see the good naked people. Because it turns out the weirder it is, usually the less attractive they are. Like when they get to the weirdest fetish, something like, oh, we like to put saddles on each other and feed each other sugar cubes while we pretend we're horses. And you kind of got it, because the guy with the saddle on his back, you know he was thinking like, yeah, sure, honey, if this is what you're into, just as long as we don't have to look at each other. But that was the thing. There would be like that one really weird thing, and then the rest of it would be stuff that's a little weird, but not really. Stuff like role-playing, which I knew I could never do. One, I would probably feel stupid and laugh trying to do that. And two, the way my brain works, I know I would kill the moment. Because something would pop in there that I would think is funny, and I would not be able to stop myself from saying it. I know this because that happens in regular life. Like my wife will be doing the dishes, and I'll say something messed up just because my brain went, hey, this'll be funny, say it. And before I get it out of my mouth, no other part of my brain will be like, hey, probably not a good idea. So I can tell you right now, if we even tried to roleplay, I'd ruin it. Like if we were doing like some of those common ones like, oh, you're a cop, and I'll do anything to get out of a ticket. That moment I could tell you I'd say something like, for crying out loud, it's only $40, you whore. Why? Because it's funny. Or if we were doing the schoolgirl fantasy where she's like, oh, my grades are bad, and I'll do anything to graduate high school. I'd probably go like, you know, if this is what you gotta do to graduate, then the high school diploma is not going to make any difference in your future. You should probably just go practice pole dancing, because that's the only legal job you're going to be cut out for. I can't stop myself, people. Or like one of the most common ones is, you're going to pretend that you're a burglar and break in and have your way with me. First of all, I would never do that one for several reasons. One, it disturbs me that that's people's fantasies. Like if it's a guy's fantasy, that's pretty much him saying my fantasy is to come in and sexually assault you. And if it's the girl's fantasy, that's her saying my fantasy is for you to sexually assault me. But I still wouldn't do it. Because acting that out just seems like too much of a hassle. Like, I'm not going to literally break in. Because if I break the door, I live in an apartment, I can't tell my landlord what happened to the door. Like, they're going to want to know how the door broke. And I'm going to be sitting there like, my wife and... I'll fix it. I told you last week how that would go. And I'm not going to climb in through the window or something, because with my luck, one of the neighbors is going to see and not think it's me. And I don't want to have to explain that to the cops. But let's just say, for argument's sake, somehow my wife was able to convince me to do it. I can tell you right now, I'd walk in and she'd be in there ready to be victimized. And my brain would go, you know what would be funny? Take the DVD player and run. Then it would go, wait, I don't want to go through all the hassle of unhooking the DVD player. Take the remote and run. But back to my point, this stuff escalates and escalates and escalates. To the point that people are coming up with the most off-the-wall, weird things to do. Like, somewhere, somebody got on the internet and said, I want to dress up like an animal. But not like a real animal. Like a cartoon animal. Like something you would see in Winnie the Pooh or something. And then I want other people to do the same. So that we can have orgies while we're all dressed up like rabbits and gophers and bears. That to me is beyond weird. I'm sorry if I'm judging you, but what the hell? But again, if you're into that, it's your business. I just wish you would keep it your business. Because the fact is, you share that with other people. You guys start getting together and doing that to the point that you have conventions once a year in my town, and you come into my work still wearing your furry stuff. I'm sorry, but I don't want to know what you do dressed up as Tigger. Crying out loud. Can we go back to keeping your crazy to yourself? There you have it. That's my story video this week. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you did, make sure to hit like, hit subscribe, hit the little bell so you get notifications when I post new videos, and leave a comment. Tell me about some other crazy things that I've gotten out there that you wish people would have kept to themselves. But do me a favor and try to keep it clean. Love you guys.